Hello and welcome to Clergy Conversations on COVID-19. I'm Melanie Carey. I'm the lead pastor of the Narden Park United Methodist Church, and this is a two-part video series. The first will be aired today, and then there'll be another one coming on Sunday, May 3rd. We are so blessed at Narden Park to have quite a number of clergy who call Narden Park their church home. And during this pandemic, we've been talking with one another about what's happening and what we're experiencing, and also how we're finding ways to cope as people of faith. And so today, I'm really pleased to have with us the Reverend Dr. Wesley Brunn and also Reverend George Coventry, who we're going to talk with today. And so thank you both for being here. And Wes, I'd just like to start with you. Wes is the former executive director of the Samaritan Counseling Center. And Wes, could you talk a little bit about the function of fear and anxiety?
All right. This is something that I've talked about with the staff. Anxiety functions for our psyche, I think, much like pain functions for our bodies. It's kind of a warning signal that there's something of danger right at hand, and we need to be aware and take appropriate steps to protect ourselves and to do what we need to do to be safe. This COVID-19 epidemic that's sweeping the world has created this kind of anxiety in a lot of people. And to wish our anxiety away would be self-defeating. It would mean that we would be somewhat disarmed in terms of understanding that COVID is a danger and we need to address it in appropriate and safe ways. I don't know if that is sufficient or not, but that's sort of how I see anxiety. There are some people in our society, unfortunately, who are out playing basketball and wrestling on the street and gathering in large crowds and that sort of thing. And my sense is that they are not anxious enough. They need to be aware of the danger that they're putting themselves and the rest of us in. And the final thing I would say about anxiety is that it can become excessive, and there are ways to discharge some of the excessive anxiety, so that what we end up trying to do is trying to keep anxiety at a manageable level so that we're aware of the danger that's at hand, and yet it's not overwhelming us to the point that we're paralyzed and unable to act in our own behalf.
So, Wes, I think that's really important and helpful information. And when you told us that as a staff and when we were talking with the other clergy, it was really insight for me, especially to think about. So it's not necessarily that we're trying to make the fear and anxiety go away, but we're trying to find ways to manage it.
That's right.
And to keep it, as you said, kind of at a manageable level, so we're not overwhelmed by it and paralyzed and totally depressed by it. I think that's really important and helpful. So tell us a little bit about, what are you doing to manage your anxiety and to cope?
Well, let me tell you a little bit about my situation. I live at Fox Run, which is an older adult retirement community with many, many people. There's probably nearly 1,400 of us who live here. And the management, of course, realizes that we're something of a vulnerable population. We're older. Many of us have underlying physical conditions. And so they have done everything they can think of to help us stay safe. We're actually encouraged to stay in our apartments. They've really closed off the clubhouses, which is where we used to go for dinner and where we used to go to pick up our mail. They're now bringing meals to us, including a snack. And they're also bringing our mail to us. And in all honesty, I don't think I have been out of this apartment. Fortunately, I like my apartment a lot, but I haven't been out of this apartment for close to a month. I mean, I've been pretty much in this apartment. And that's the way I deal with it is I tell myself this is what I need to do in order to stay safe.
That's great. And are there any other like coping strategies besides telling yourself that that's what you need to do? Is there anything else that you do to help
Well,
yourself?
I spend a lot of time on the phone talking to family. I have 4 kids, and so I spend time talking to each of them. And I have taken on a responsibility that George passed on to me out here at Fox Run, which is to try to stay in touch with the people from Narden Park who live here. There are 17 of us that I'm aware of who live out here. And so from time to time, I'll put in a call to one of them and say, how are you managing? How are you dealing with things? And that's my way of sort of staying in touch with the outside world at the same time that I'm continuing to perform a kind of ministry on behalf of the church.
So those, I think, are really helpful things, and about ways, again, to manage our anxiety and to cope with the situation that we find ourselves in. Thanks, Wes. And, several times when we've been on Zoom with Wes, he gets phone calls while we're talking. He's very popular, and I think that's partly how you're keeping your spirits up. So now we know your secret. That's right. So hopefully, we're hoping no one calls Wes during the broadcast right now, but it could happen.
Yeah.
So George, can you tell us a little bit about how you're coping and what ways you're managing anxiety or things that you're thinking about in the midst of this pandemic?
Well, Wink, my wife, and I live in a house in Southfield, and we've pretty much, on orders from our son and daughter, been told to stay in and not be driving about and going out. And our son has been very good at going out and getting things for us, as well as neighbors. Our next door neighbors go out and get groceries for us every other week or so when they go out and when we need it. And we pretty much, like Wes, have been in place for about 5 weeks, I guess you could say. But the nice thing is we can be outside when the weather is good. Our neighborhood is nice to walk in, and so we walk. We make our homemade mask, and we walk our dog around the block, and that gets us outside. And we have a garden, and I'm an avid gardener, so I'm able to have some time outside and to be working in the garden. And part of my time is also, I've decided during this period that I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. So that gives me a task, a job I'm trying to learn to do. My fingers are getting calloused from the steel strings, and I'm trying to get with the rhythm and the beats and do some singing. And Wink and I end up singing in the evening, or singing together, which has been a lot of fun. And we also have been able, through our daughter, to hook up with an app called Marco Polo, and that's got us in touch with all of our family all around the country. And so we plug into one another and find out what's going on with family in Vermont, or family in Washington State, or down in Washington, D.C., or New York City, or Philadelphia, and Ohio, and getting in touch with folks. And that's been a great deal of help, just keeping those connections and checking in. And I do miss being at the church and having the type of camaraderie we have with staff, and with missing those Sunday worship, and grieving some of that we can no longer do.
Well, thanks. And I think, again, thank you for those coping strategies, and also for we look forward to hearing you play your guitar. Hopefully, we
Well,
can work on that. That'll be something we can all look forward to.
we'll work on that.
That's great.
One thing too that's been helpful is we continue to run our Wednesday book study, Beth Titus and I, and that's been very helpful. And the book we chose before this all happened was the Book of Joy, and by the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and that's been a great help because there's so much in that book that relates to what's going on and how we react to anxiety, to fear, to loss. All those type of things are mentioned in the book, although this was written in, I think, 2016. But here we are talking about it as it relates to what's going on in our crazy world right now.
So book studies and connecting in new ways and new technology, and finding things that you can do are really important. And also ways to nurture our faith with each other. So that's really helpful. Well, it's been great to talk with both of you today. I really appreciate your willingness to be in this video and be part of our series, Clergy Conversations on COVID. And we look forward to the next installment, which will be coming on Sunday, and we'll be talking to some other clergy that relate to Narden Park. So stay safe out there, and find your ways to manage your anxiety, and find ways to cope and keep the faith.